everyone. We are going to do a couple of things this morning. The first is that DeeDee is going to sort of talk with you about the thematic analysis process and see if we can discuss some of the challenges of that.
아니 단다데 가서 디리 가서 되게 가시 지어서 토마틸라야 네 데데라기 개성가서 주시단 드레비기 또 저던단 드레비기 20지야 지금 리튼 드리어와 knowledge 드리어와 어떻게 콜라야 드드지야 인스티 값서 조데 디 드리비 값서 강에 가리가리 지트선 티 콜라 드드지야 인스
So I will turn it over to you, DeeDee.
Great, thank you so much. Analysis is complex work.
나 어떤 게 가서 20지야 지어와 애널라이시스나 20지야 때 어떤 게 많고 리턴 때 산역도 지어레스.
And so I would like to hear from some different groups or individuals of what are some themes that you found in your work, and then the example that you decided described that theme.
그다음에 제출나네로와 루카군이 데시지나디도 야나미 그 데시지나디도 스타 데시지아디 카렌세스 남발에 제출게 드레도게 이집트 지용스 남바 주시탄 주特선 조던탄 데비기 이집트 지용스 남발야 아니 쇼론라야 조던 조드나 카리카리치라손스 조던 티 라야틸라야 아니 지금 데시자게 비츠 카나도치 종송스 티콜라야 데시지나로치스.
So, is there a group that would like to share first?
티콜라야 데시자니 티네로 카트네 여에사.
I just need one theme and then the example from your interview survey.
다다다치 주시지어와 저등까지 지금 바테제 되게 제라네 지속에 대해 제습지지어서와 되게 나네 아니 비춘지 아니 샤로치스.
Hello.
어쨌든
먼저 주시세라.
네네.
제시제는 배전디 숨디 담보 대지도 체라.
네네.
하고 주시 담보들랑 저디 강에 디지. 강에 체라. 이 제시들라 디디. 루심니가라 미테와 깨버체베 ngo보식 강이기 제시지라. 아니 배저디디 고나와신.
뭐래?
Less.
The example for the thematic analysis is as you have three categories for the example yesterday: the theme, the explanation, and the example. Their theme is problem or 강의 problem, and their definition is something that bothers your mental as well as physical condition. And the definition and the example is headache.
Great. That's a good one to find, and you can use that multiple times as you read through your interviews.
단다디 바이나코 데시페야고 제수페야고 샤샤스와 아니 디나네 하버트디 지마 제수고 제르도 지비 값이 바나 단다디 따치 양세양세고 탕망볼라야 니 지가서 런던 지나드기요레스.
So, are there any groups that ran into challenges or had their own problems trying to code their interviews?
Tati nya ji rukha shendang nane jigen dinado dribi kaps kange thechu dinado chonsong es tapi jashin da dinado ji Istanbul da chechuge the that the digu or what that the Dirado that the Distambalaya and it's Chinopta docha, Kangendo church, Digtang Masio do Nathan do Jonju in the Johnson is. Yes. Group 3. Awesome again.
Ngaturuka somebody da chidani di jushi lana da khanamada di khasadi interview chera.
Rere.
Shisin sinangazi di tikbanira.
Rere.
Kani khare ches lana da sigi thani da phege thone direjura. Kani chikesra.
Rere.
Ani de shamba ani da deshi jadi this kangi des.
Rere. That city pekene just but city kangi city suguri. Josh said what team said what.
Apena stress do the phegina.
Okay.
Nani sigeta wa ina da sigra ra ina da di gote ra chira hodi this kangi des.
Lasso. Tsik Kutunti Kangi Teson Sarwa, Tim the Shenda de Karikangi Teson Somba?
Shamba mixi kangi temaso.
Okay. Yeah. The challenge is the first is like when we come to the terms that define our mental problems, such as like stress. When they just say the stress and go through for dictionaries, find a word, and then explain to the interviewees, is hard for them to convey the real meaning what stress means. So that's one of the challenges. It doesn't, even if you use a Tibetan word to say that is stress, but it doesn't really really convey the meaning. It define the meaning clearly for them. So that's one of the challenge.
Yes, I agree. And that is why there's the column for you to define your theme so that you get to define it and how you are using it for this research project.
아니 그런 게 대시트로 지스고 왔다 고든지로 지사지고와 어떻게 전부 차거요레스 가르치는 게 전부 차거요레스나 강텔라 수수 치치 지요레 치치 지바데라 아니 고든티 수수 간다스 고든티 모토지기 임반 대시자기 임바세 되게 아니 고든티 투스 대시자가 될해기요레스.
And one of the ways you address that challenge is through the definition, and then as you write about your research, you acknowledge that there are multiple definitions, and here's the one you chose to use.
다다되게 지강에들의 동런지에 티치가를 시스템발에 츠티긴 레시티 트야치고와 츠티 레시티 트레스 다그 다시 심지 티나로지 드비가 값처럼 가르치고 요래 시스템발에 츠치라야 그 돈다테 드라마다 지 레시자던 드라마다 돈도 마음부치 투스와 임바이나야 ngaran tanda telaya tose de drip caps tonton te damba inse te chonge ani chikar sugurta milen ta sesheti chiguyores.
You might also challenge previous definitions of the word stress by saying they leave out this piece that we found in our research.
That team say chon kari nona degree system balaya chon ngela ya thonsha jugi chita stress na nga sugita sanna talina tanoni mambuju shaifa o tse dege nantan te ngoma deshi tira chijap shaswa this tambalaya nantan te tata chidegi mindus dele degi mindu jinsen kari system balaya nantan ko goten delaya 아니 단대긴 디나로 지기 자시도 그런 게 때문에도 스티스탄발라야 아니 응응기처럼 그 고떤 때라야 양식 걸 갖다 가파 잡선을 그래 때라야 아니 지금 좋았다나디 특이요레스.
And it also makes it nice to work with a group of people because you can wrestle with those challenges together.
다단다 디나네 양고 루카나네 미망부터 냠도 리카치아데 코랑라야 긴신 첨부 쇼치거레스 긴신 첨부 요바게 진sen치거레스 스탄발라 루카마 미망부터 냠도 루카나네 저티 드비용 비캅스 카르치거레스 스탄발라야 딘단로게 강에 퇴바인바나 아니 지금 냠도 냠릴라 테네 타 강에 데이터라이 동렌치아데 릴라오용 그레스.
Are there other challenges other people would like to share?
강에 셴다 텐다 테사야스 셴다 텐다 소니 요야사.
Hello.
Hello, Desidele.
I'm from the group 4. So we choose the theme based on dead people yesterday's interview. So at that time we chose the theme happiness, like happy or excitement, right? And then when we give the explanation, so we face the problem because we didn't collect the reason what people make excitement. So that's why can we put the explanation by ourselves, or do we have to interview each of the, for example, if we ask to 4 people if they have, like the excitement, then do we have to ask each people's the reason why they excited? So we have this problem.
So that requestable
For the example too.
requestable kan ka test so ba kusu dria ti khasan khining gender china yo ro nga su diche sa ta ya na chi tusam ko as ko excited ro o tire do gi thela mela ye gender chion sta bala ne chi gotan ti khabu chi du sta ti gi gotan ti sha bi kapsa nga su mo ne phang ko gotan ti tambu sha ko we yena ani kusu gender jesa kusu la ya ani chi tusam ko ta ya na chi ta ga tusam ro happy sa tira do is tambalaya tigu kudanti kana do shago yo skijeti trigo re tina do kangeti tesons.
So one thing you have learned is that as you design future interview and survey questions, you want people to explain.
Ta tanda chesu de kapsi chesu kare chi sarwando ngi yo re sistambalaya ni mi shenda dai jima chandri chiguna re yamna cheship tinda do twa tinda tat ko twa sugarata cheship ki twa tinda do chi kapsi ngi bashi karo re sistambalaya mi shenda la ya ani kurangi tinda do samsu kare yo patan deshe kare yo patela ya ani kare deshe kandas jagi imbe se te yang chi khano jago te chesu tanda ngi yo res.
And the other piece is that if you do have interview text and you did not ask someone to explain, then you might use the inferential analysis to infer or say, what did they imply as they said happiness? Did they mean excitement? Did they mean joy? So then you're doing an inferential analysis versus a direct analysis.
Ta tanda de ka so yang ke teacher ang ke te ko kutan ti tinda do lab gun ko jinsan kari imbe sa te tra tempa je sona tanda ga su ge yang ko Egypt de la ya ta theker ge Egypt chi ta ni de la ya je pak ke Egypt chi wa the inferential system bala te la te ta ga su pak ko yo wa ta jinsan do dang de ta wa o ti ko ge ta happiness system bala dichi system bala ya khari se Tusen kowa segude yana gatu lagude kangela kugudu sayate nga suge yanko jepak ke chipchigo rwati peche tangna digres.
And so quite often if you are the interviewer, you remember the body language of the person you interviewed as they said, oh yes, that makes me happy. And so you can infer from that about what explained their happiness.
Tanda chera lopar de chera chi gender jini ji becomes ina chera gender ji becomes ro ta chi jimi chi la chera chi ta dichiti ka di chson ani ta kange chi la ya dichido chson sa ti tri becomes ta mi phajo tikin deshi chi jag ro wa dichi sa ti deshi ja becomes chera ge chi mi ti ge lipu ge namji tang tangka la supa chi thong yo res ti thong stambala ya ani chera ge chi jepa che ba imba na til hawo yo re al ko ge Kechetishe pickups, dishes a big, Kechetishe pickups, Zupuge, and a Chatan dinner duration, Dompang Namjin dinner duration, Dean Stambalayan, Dig, and it's a Tonton dinner which is Songo, Yosares, and it's you Jipak, the Egypt Chinadicores.
I've run into this same challenge when I interview science teachers, that I know more than what is written on the paper, and I have to decide, do I just use what's on paper, or do I also use the knowledge that I have as the researcher?
Ngarangi that Tsering gigan dinner wala chandi chibukaps, Taranja Kangichi Pachi Tresons, the Kari Tresons is Tambara, and gender chiu ka se da chi shugo ga zhi sha ju ge chi go den dang ji ni zi ji or wa ti la shi ti ran la shi sha ji ku ta je gu yor we yin na nga rang ge la yu pi gi ji shi sha dang nyong nyam nyong la so pa mang pu ji yor wa de ta la shi sha de ta je gu re se ge ti kang ge ti che song da din sta ba le ti che ti yang ji xin ji pa ji yin bi ngu ga ne kang ge ti che song.
And either way is correct. And when you write up your research again, you acknowledge the position of you as the researcher and what information you're bringing into it. It is called positionality.
But under the caps, hopper, the congregational and Dukuyoreswa, teacups chesuni guatica system balata, other the caps, Nisata, Niva, Tanchi Susugita, Kasugurita, Zentanti, Kechambu, Zugu Yoreswa, the Carladna. Chesuin bana Shinjipachi in Shinjipachi Netan, Delaya Shinjichi, the Tan is Sentinel Roaching the Shijag, USA, Susugi, Netan, Tatans and Tanchi or Wata, what they are on Suto Puzuguris.
So are there other challenges that people wanted to share?
Yeah. In our group, we face similar challenge as we already find the theme. It is like a late sleep. So the interviewer, they said that late sleep, that if we sleep late, it is face challenge to fall asleep. So we already find the theme late sleep, but we challenge to describe it, which we measure whether we forgot to ask the interviewer to what he mean by late. So we search through the Googles. It say the late sleep is around 11 p.m. So we think that since in the monastery, most of the monks, they fall sleep at the daytime, so around 1 hour. So then we just infer that we decided to at 12 midnight. So I don't know whether it's correct or not. The definition we said after midnight, we consider explanation of the late nights.
Oh, Pokela Tabichi Sorochete.
Natsuruga Direta, Tandagi, the Georgia do the Rasaro, Georgia de Pena, ni Chibunia, Digita, ni Kuela Kanye Tigula, Inia, ni Chibu Lady, and the Chuadansa de Chibu condition when the Chigu meeting as a Chuatan Chomara. That she's another Chibu and the condition when the Chibu as a Dinazo, Gen Google Gazetiro, Gen Google Chuji la, the Chibola, Jora, di Shagarella, Tangazuki Carre Chibo di Lawaina. Tini ngazu nyinguni kuora chawa doso ta chuzu jiksto seshi chawa na di risa mare la ne ta chuzu sen chuzu juni la ngazu ta digin deshe do ti ta di takta dige na.
Maltuji, thank you. We have many translators over there, so.
Great. So this is another thing that I have run into as well, is that I have a theme in my mind and I've defined it. And as I start looking at the transcripts, what I'm thinking changes. And that is okay to change. And then you go back and look at other interview transcripts if you've already coded them and recode them.
Tatanda de Narana la Kangitesons, Tatambo de la Susu Sambuna Jushi de Dachore de la Aneko Gutan Dinado Chishachi, Yores at Yores, in by Nayanko. Chandri Chigro, the Chandri Chi, the Chandri Chiwate, and cook that till a diction with Jelaya, a little dim by the Chikumado, the Tatachi Degamudus and Baina, and Nikoya, Tachonga, that Dijutilaya, Yancher Yan Jugorata, and the transcript says Tambalayang as Chandri Chinu with Jela, Chandri, some Eagle Paparata, Eagle Papati, could Tantu Rimuna to Gogorwa, Tantu Rimuna Gunu Jela, Nico, Yancher, and Chandri Tetala Tendeta, Ale Dinado Chita Digdu, that Kunjura Chitango do Sestambalaya, Koga, that Dupatila, Yanchia, Lord de Tanko, Guatata Tag, now that Digitila and Juratana Digores.
And so sometimes I have been coding transcripts and maybe I have 3 of them and I've done 1 and done 2 and I get to 3 and I want to add a new code. I have to go back and look at 1 and 2 to see if I need to recode anything there to include the new theme I've added.
That and the picha shabayna ngarang drip shaju ta gender data itula pab ko da dish shaju data smio bayna rwa tela ya iko da dish shaju ge tido shi sha de ta ani ko karsugureta gender tampo telata gender nipa telata ani gender simba telestambala ale tangi da dish shaju ko lentang de tata chi degam doga tin stambala ya ani ko tandangi ta court system balaya ta dekasa da drise or ta sanda se gota kala zudi kala na this korta ko gender ti la ya Egypt chia gita ko gita menga ro chilo ko yor ta dekapsro oti ko thepa chi na kan ro chi yo sare thepa chi na sana tandagita gender ti la ya ko ko la tan jura do sare do samari sugro oti na ro chi bana ani ko menga sawar oti ko peche ta deta tampo da disha ju gender tampo te la peche ta tan chetri niwa te la peche ta chi
The other thing that might happen is you have two different people code interviews differently. So then you have to go back and talk about it and decide, do you code the same text in two ways, or do you come to a consensus and decide together how you want to code that text?
The picture ya sama kang category system bala ya mi mando ni gir wata gender kan ching ba na chi kan ching ba na ko ge dat di on stambala ya ko karsugureta dictante mando de ne restro adin stambala di kapsung asu karchuresa ko ta karsugureta loga te chi te la ya dat di kapsi ba na ko loga digimbe ina koran sha nyam ta trider chi de ro nyam ta trider chi de tan ko ta thmong gu sagura ta Tumongi nyamte kilenchi agi yanko ge da diktanchi la kilenchi gorese te yon gres.
Anything else?
Shemba yos.
Gelang tu lekang itu dah itu. Sekarang dari sana pina jono dah je saya di pasal jual nang tanda dah je sidi lewat ina sidi ke tanda de ini desi tang pensu de pasal di ini jual tu saya digi ya, doa. Kurang ke kuah jadi ini segu na, ane cuci ya cunjo nang ya jono saya digi ini desi kan dah ya, desi jadi ni doa. Desi yang ngaco kerja je ini cunjo dah je, na dena jadi ni doa. Yang topa sekarang lagi tu sana, ane pasal dia love dengi tiki kuah dia mendapat yo yongsi kerwa, kita kerja na caca kuih nas.
Okay. Yeah. What the problem, the challenge that face as a group is the when you choose a theme and you have a definition, and how do we go with that? Because we have a definition from the dictionary that says what sadness means. Should we go with that, or should we go with the person, the interviewee's understanding of what sadness means?
Oh, that is a challenge. So that's what you decide as the researcher, as you can expand that dictionary definition of sadness to include what the person is saying. And so one of the things you can write about is that the dictionary definition does not encompass all of what sadness means to people.
Tanda de kapsit muni kange chi res tada de kapsit chesu kare nana de ko res stambalaya chi tskzo nana yo pegi tanga su chona stambalaya de chi kodon chi ro ate chi pu sha mai ban chorang nyamshi pa chi yimbi ngu gan chorang kari chi yo res stambalaya ane tada ge chi tskzo nana yo pegi chona se de ge kodon la ya ane detan chi changmen du stin stambalaya chorang ge gender jesa korang ge chona se telan de she kare jago yo pa 아니 측정나나 갈수 그랬다 지금 마찬가지 같을 가능 지대대 지난주 거리스.
So what you're finding as the dictionary has defined sadness in one way, but it is much more complex because it encompasses many more components than what is written in the words in the dictionary.
Tanda diga nitang kapsu kari oresis tambala jonang saya telaya nanti 측정한 거 고단 zamaiba kola ya chi ko armba ta chu ko chakhi ta yala la supa mampu chi yo pa yogres.
So that is a good finding to include in your research writing.
Tati tambala ya chi su gete ya chi su su ta the Shinjing Yamyong Latin at the time, the near pig in nature, Kutumas and Hachan kitchen butcheries, that they Karachi Guresena, Jelachi to the Shimjik and Yentu Tribe Caps, Yentu Nataliam to the Kakunchina Yoris.
Guba ira o dilayan ta tobaros conditions ngranto chatsambaina tanda ngazo ani tanda cheshipji tera din nanglo la ani karesana ani tangbo ani ngazo karado samso chida ani karesana ko semyung ko la ani tanda di karasa cheshipti tanda thematical analysis ti chego insare samzro indi chambala ta semyung ge ko la dinde ji chende chambala ta chida semyong la be chambala ngazo ko di 남기 먼저 영화 시대 잠발 직 초와지라 직 고아지 링거라다 먼저 남기 이게 영화도지 다 근데 인데 잠발 빼나 아니 먼저 직 흘려지네 대대다오다 티네 양 서로 단다 콘조 다 칼어다 셴바 체리 베스네 모두 다 간다 남기 먼저 이모션 들려 야 티스 고아도디 티스 로가도지네 인데 잠발다 아니 흘려지네 대게 딘데게 아니 티솔라 양 영화도지 샤고요나 야나 직고 남베토네 쳔나 고 초와시대 잠발 다 다가랑 영화디 차되어라 di ani emotional shagore di ani emotional shayo mare sejurada cherochida di ani joke hosani di emotional kai kora mission ani adi odus yale
what they face as a challenge is because of the different definitions that we have in science and Buddhism for the term emotion. What we have, the Tibetan term for emotion is samyong, and the sam means actually mind or mental, and nyong means that can be translated as a feeling or something like that. So when that term was translated in Tibetan as a samyong, mental feeling or mental experience, then we have a really confusing understanding of what the real term means. Sometimes we have like relaxation, or when you feel relaxed, and we say we can talk about emotion, but that's mainly about a feeling that you have. So what is the demarcation or the boundary between you between emotion and feeling? So it's kind of confusing to really get the true meaning what emotion means when you have that term is translated as a samyong, and also we may have a different understanding of emotion in scientific research and Buddhist studies.
Yes, and that's where you as a researcher decide for yourself where that demarcation is.
되게 타주제 완차대 시설라바요레스 시설난고요레스 나 거아지래 참샤게베 딘다지나 용화라 구인 딘다지래 산용화 고이 딘다지래 초화 구인 세치고로 다티기 참샤데 허퍼다다디 거서 이모션스 세명세 치고로 어디다가 참 거아샤인디 시설난고요레스.
And you may decide how to divide it based on previous research that you've read, or you may say, as the researcher, they should not be divided.
야 지치도 가려나는 데그래서나 엄마게 딱시 지샤주지고로 아til라 시샤데티 안단다게다 삼용을 얻는다가 수기지 고셔자 바이나 딘센디나디나디나라 고셔자 인세치 나치수가 나난드거래 야나얀텔레 고도데다 어디 고수가 드나도 지라 이와 지샤두스 이와 드나도 지치는 드김 두세 드나도 야 지나드거레스.
Robin,
yeah.
I think this is an important point because you mentioned the difference between emotion, feeling, and mood. Do you think we should discuss that a little bit right now?
Yeah, I think we'll do some of that tomorrow in my discussion of the neuroscience of emotion, but I think it's always a good topic to explore. So I will say that in academic kind of views of emotion, the difference between an emotion, a feeling, and a mood is primarily about the duration of the feeling state.
Tanda di kapsa tanda di chua di tangsonga karsa genla robin lagi yang ko tanda nga su semnyong sa tang emotions gura feelings na chua sa chi ani mood sa na comes gura tanga su gi sam kam tang ma du sa chwa o te ta ka khapar te ani ji desha ge me song sa ge genla ge sanjing ge choting kapsa di ko la ya triderity stajwa yung gres ra nischel ge ba na ko so 다치 신지 지위 값으로 다 전에 신지 받치 공부하는 시바이나 단다 생명사에 당 초화사에 당 생감사에 되다게 지 챕터 조데 아니 되다 요비 값라야 지 준롱로 진행도 무사가 듀레이션스도 왔다 네위기 뒤인데라 시샤 첫 번째 그래서
And we'll discuss that in more detail tomorrow.
다 산이 되다 콜라야 지우 시작이스.
But I think what I'm learning from this conversation is a really rich, kind of a rich insight into the fact that, you know, we in America may view certain feelings or states in one way, whereas you all may have a very different interpretation or kind of model of understanding those states, and that it's going to be really important for us to explore those similarities and differences as we think about collaborating and conversing on the science of emotion.
Tanda de kapsung ju ngasula chwa karil hesong system bala ya ji ta ji ari ta nishola ya ninkin ji lo chombai bai na ji samnyung ge re de ta la ya nga chu sam ge ne be de ta la ya ko len tang tang ji deshe ja tang tang tinda ji yang mando ji yu ba wa de nang sing ge de tinda do ji re de ina ya ani tanda chi chu ta yang ji ri ta mando wa ta chi chu ta zung na la ya de ta la ya 지금 가르스그레다 고알렌탄탄 지금 양 레셰자탄탄 지금 소아스그로다 네탄테 정말 만다 지요바 아니 지금 디나로 지요바데 고토텔레선스와 다다나 디캅스니 고아테 카레스나 땅아수게 지금 냠리 지지비 캅스 스타 지금 너시고 차르바탄탄 남비 긴름바 지금 케파데로 지금 냠리 지비 캅스 가수 디캅스 지금 가르스그레다 그 바로라로 왔다 지금 리뷰 만도 얘기 나라야 3년 됐다고 고알엔타 만도 가리가리 지도 콜라야 지틈 비차 가리 지도 마틈 비차 가리 지도 네 타마델라야 냠도 양고 냠르 강니 지금 투몽기 키 랭귀지 에 간다로 지네사데세 데이터 강라야 삼르당한테 두스 케침부슈치 통두스.
And the last point I'll make is these differences are not a problem, but rather something to be celebrated, because they highlight the richness of the influence of culture and experience and language on our emotional experience. And it becomes a really rich point of conversation about how we can experience emotions in ways that are similar and also different.
Tanda dege netandi kapsang asula ya kebra yo patero kebra yo pati chi kangya do chila ya dus kangya do tan chi tu do chila thongwe tena mares dita imba yapu chi tan ngasu chi gasu chi go tena chi sta tege kari songore system bala ya kei tan shishon tan samlu tan tan nyamyo mando la tena deta ngasu deta la ya kwa len tan mando chi yo wa deta chagyo restina shinga ngasu ya deta kala ya nyamli chi kapsa chi ya 거기 tumbicha 마tum비차 아니 디스탄발라야 데이터게 지가서 측식인 바에나야 고알란도 만도 하정기 지금 가르스고다 하정 축부여 바데 정도스.
And I will add, what's important is that you bring your definition and why you are using that definition for a term.
tanda dene yang shechula ngarango sende chechikari sena ni chesuga tampo ji ta ji deshe chi kyangura godan chi kyangura godan chi kyong godan kyong de gala ya godan tenaro chi kyong age junsan kari imba se de kyong ya ke chimbu chagdus.
Thank you so much, DeeDee. I have learned a lot.
You're welcome. Thank you all for having me again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, DeeDee. That was wonderful.
And for those of you who will be doing interviews for your studies or maybe doing interviews in the future, I know that both DeeDee and Mina will be willing to answer questions. And so we'll make sure you have their email addresses so that you can communicate with them.
Data la ya draw do tang chi kang ge thre ro tin do chi chong song na she su ge yang chi draw tlan che tang chi ro pa che sa te tan da again did la tang ge min na ni cha la ya to draw tlan de go rest ni tam ba la ya again did la tang ne ge min na la ni che ge tan de lok thang kha sha te che su this time against
And while we're still talking about thematic analysis, I want to talk about a publication that involves some of the researchers sitting in the room with you today.
Mahanta tanda de ngasuge chi jushi gi chechip ti ko la yan de se ja ge yesa tanda de tan treve ro tanda de na ne lapar ta ani tanda de la ya ani nyamshi ge choi chi pe yore nyamshi ge choi ti pe ni ro ani tanda chi nyamshi pa tanda de na na yu chu tin do triore ti tambala nyamshi ge choi ti chi chong to chi yes.
So when Mina and I taught introductory biology for ETSI, we were very interested in how the students in the class, some of you who are in the room, made sense of conflicts between your sort of Buddhist teachings and the teachings that we had from modern science.
Tanda nga ta ge milan che tanda ge ani tachun ta peche dina loptu khashi dina la yore sechula di ji jingi chanri ti tripi kaps ani ji tachun chechu nam che number soge ji tanga su nambi shon tan chanri ke na la ya ji jingi tan debi ko lan tan mando tin yo wa ko lan tan mando ti ta la ya ji julong kan do ji ji yo pa ta ji ti la ya ko to kan do ji lang yo pa ti ke na ne khipen kari ji lang yo pa ti ko la ya decision yes.
So Mina and Jampa and Kalden and I did a number of interviews of students in the class to ask about what they were learning and these conflicts and the potential resolutions.
Tanda again Mina re tane chambare kandere ngasuge ani tanda ani chari janli gita chena la ya ani this draw jitain draw ta ete karela na 지금 고알랜탕 탈라야 진 개와요 랑 개와데 개와데 카리카리 지레도 개와데 세라야 탑시 카리지 타임 베트라도 콜라야 아니 젠드지와 인스.
The four of us after interviews would often talk a lot and discuss what we were hearing to try to sort of infer some of the meaning.
ngasu shangune 젠드지 누기 제라로 아니 ngasu 게 나라야 지야 Limo in the Chungu use Keja shade to the Chide, Alekusu dinner do Chilagado, Canado Chilagado, dinner do lives Tabalaya, and a cook get dinner do Chichungu, Sare, dinner do Kolaya, and the Kamu chansons.
And then Mina did a thematic analysis, which would have had terms like conflict and resolution.
That the Chelaya Carichore Senate and Jushi and the Egypt Tichiva, instantly Pichashana, Gawa Carichito, Telaya, set up Carichito, say sick, rather city, Tinsha Golaya, and a co with Jushi and the Vigishi.
And the main finding, which we published in the journal Science Education, is that in part because of His Holiness's teachings, when modern science teaches something new, the idea is that you are often incorporating that into sort of part of your knowledge base. And so there tends to be a very quick resolution.
And the decapsing telaya, ko Kasuka Jushi and the Ishi, Ishi, and the telaya, Tsering said the Teptigalaya, Yamshi, so the tires, the decapsing by nature. Kundungi Katina Chitaritan Tikolaya, Katubian Sians in Angor, that data Latin de Aniko Zindata Tseritan Doju and Zindran data Netun Sabat in the Trio Chibaina, so Chibaina, so Chiba de Taco Savatarwa, Savare, 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 Tila and Geola Mampo Yorda, in by Naya, kallo teta la tende di ani ta tachungi chi chona la ko ting melenchi ase ko wata gewa yorda ina gewa te sayagi tablen ta ta ni ko gen druya ga jirumti dus hacha nyurmu chireshas.
And because this research is published in a journal and available to the community, it allows future researchers to then maybe compare what happens in classrooms with Tibetan monastics versus in other classrooms around the world where there are conflicts between either religious or cultural backgrounds and the teachings in the classroom.
Tanda de la ya nyamchi ge zomi ge tanda ta thola sha yor wa ta thola ta ko pattern chi char wa tin stambala yu stambala je la ya ani ko nyamshi chi ni shenda dina do yang ko ge karso gore nyamshi shenda dre de tanda ge data la yang ko chidr che tinda yor es ta chidr che kare yor es na ani ko ge tanda ani chi tachung gi ta chi chona la ya this and the Tsering de la chi yung ge kapsar wa ta ko so ge chi region tan samlu komsila sopala tani kuala tante tan ani ya chin zinta na thia de da zo de da Tsering zinta thia segor wa ta Tsering de chibi kapse de la ya gewa karish to yan de da la ya chi sayage chi setup do kana do chi do de ta de tanda dus drip sha ju ge nyen shi zoyi de ta ya ko durya ta ni tene ko lacha la ya gi ni tan yan yong gres.
So in many ways, the way that scientists communicate is similar to sort of communication that's happening in terms of in Tibetan Buddhism scholarship.
Tanda ko Tsering kena la ya ko su chi ta limo chia tang ko pan se story chia ge ne ta te chi yang ko cho chi ne ta ba ba na ane ta nam be ge chu de kha la ya pan su la ya chi ta chi ko tre ta chi limo chia ge ne ta te ta pan su ro yo res.
So scientists give presentations, which is similar to teachings.
That Tsering ba na ko su ga tamchi chi ge res te ane ko chechutala yo pe ge ta gonde khala ya lopchi chi gi ro ta pichi chi gi pa ta na res.
Scientists sometimes get together and debate topics. They don't always agree.
Tsering ba sam la nyam tin zang de ta ko su gu ju shi ta pa kor la ya dus dolan chi res dolan che ba na yang ko ti ta te yin chi chama ge thamong ge khilen chi wa tin ro yong ma res.
But in science, sort of a key part of sort of sharing what you find is through sort of written research articles.
That Tsering ke trela ya ani susu kari chi sarnya chong ate mi mambula chi dampe chi ge thablen chode kare system la ya ne chi simji ke somi tin ro tri da ta pe gi res.
Right. So with that, we are going to move on to thinking about how to create surveys for your research studies. DeeDee, you're welcome to stay with us, but you're also welcome to go and enjoy your morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Tanda de nga so ge te chi chi gen sta tanda che su la ya ta nyamshi chi se gor wa tanda de kap se ba na nyamshi chi kap se ta che chip ke diwa chi zo ya chi gor wa o te zo tang ko la chi ani de shi ja gens.
So what we're going to do now is Dawa and I are going to show you how to create a Google form in order to make a survey that you can give to your participants.
Ta che so ge tanda narani ngone kare chi ngoto chi gen sena che so ge ta te takshe simji kap se nyamshi chi nyu ko sala ya te chi so draw chi tang go yor wa ta draw te ta ani Google Forms as to Google gane ni kanda do chi zo go me te dus desija tan dus tongins.
So we're going to do this by creating a survey for the fake or practice study that Robin and David and Ken and I said that we might do.
Tanda de kanas tongins na gela number shi ngo ne wa ane ko ta te chitsula ya takshe simjing de na do chi do ge yin sa ti shi sha de te ane dus te tanda Google Forms se ko ta ti draw ge tsote kana do zo yo me te tengins.
So as a reminder, in our pretend study, our research question is, does walking meditation in the evening improve sleep quality?
Hata tanda de chu kare system bala ya gonda manye ngwe la ya nga chu gun drogum je ba yin ba na drogum te ge ne karsugureta ni pikala sugura ni la ya shuchin tigre marisa ta ale te ni la ya pentogresa chorwa oti kor gitwati yes.
And we said that we were going to conduct an experiment. We would have 5 people do meditation in the evening and 5 people not do meditation.
Tati kaso ngaso karan zushi chinya mi ngage ane karsana drugam ti java che mi ngagan drugam ti jaga yomaris.
And then we were going to do 2 kinds of surveys, which is true for many of your groups. One is a survey just about your general sleep habits in the last month. And the other is a survey that the participants take each morning for 3 days.
Tata de kapsa ko ge chechip te mando ani chi yes chechip tampo te kare devi dawa chi la ya chi yong gar wata chi ni ge neta te kan do chi re se ti chechip chi che ani nyawa te kare se stambala ya ani ko anili seno la rota devi nyama smir su kota nyama singra la ya ani anili seno la ya ko chu la ya te chi chechip chi chi do chechip te yang ko anili sabata ani nyama singra la do yo res.
And I think Dawa's child is deciding to participate with us this morning. So we right now are going to work on how we would create the second survey. The idea is that the 10 people would wake up each morning, grab their phone or laptop, and take this survey.
Tanda de kapsa ngaso ge tela ya chechibe ni to o ma te ngaso tanda kanda zugo yo mete tagi insta tanda de kare se tambala yan zushi chini terwa ta mi che te ge chopa ngamu dang tanel se ba tan wa ina khapra yamna chi lole ti ya lende ta ani twala shaja lende chwa chi ge ani twa tin do chi zugo yin chechu chai twa tin chi chi yin.
So you've all gotten in the habit of sort of creating new documents in your group folders. And so I'm just going to go ahead and do this in the group 1 folder.
Na tada chechu ba na de la ka susu ge ta group ge rukha la yang ko ge te dinseng ge icha cha sa chi to ga te ga tele chi ta icha sawa ya chuya ge te chechu ha ko chi de sha standa ba na ga su ka tampo de na chin de te ne tanda ge chechu ge kar su ge twa te chi zu ge yes.
So you'll see in purple here, you'll see that there is a form called a short survey, and we'll come back to that later.
Tanda gande la ya ani tambo de la ya ko chechu thong chi sa sto wa de sto de la ya de yores de la ya je la ya chechu tanda di res.
So but right now we're going to create a new form by clicking on new and then choosing form.
Tanda mana ngaso de la ya Google Form tinda sawa chizu ge yes de la ya phajo de la ya server sa sto new sa sto ti ge ne ti ge je la ya ani form sa ti ga sa de ne di res.
So this is the form, and here we can give the form a title, and I'll call it meditation and sleep experiment.
Da de kapsa ngaso ge de la ya ta chechip ti la ba che cheshi le khachan chite go ke gro khachan de la ya ani gom ta ni gi ta se khachan de te yes.
And then Dawa, can you add the Tibetan translation and maybe show how you do that?
Oh, that is too much. Sure, group 1. Okay. Tata de gala ye pe de shaja ko trishana dig durwa ta pichashana ge ti chi wa tanda ge pe de shaja trim ba can you refresh? Okay, I need to refresh. Then can you refresh again? Wait, Shaja Trishana dig this is gonna. This is interesting, right?
Do I see it? Yeah, I see it.
Do I have two like entitled forms?
It may still say untitled. Oh, now I see two. I don't know why I see two. Yeah, I now see one called meditation and sleep. Click on that one.
Okay. Okay. Gomtans, niches, stages. Oh, yes.
Perfect. So for your surveys, you will be surveying people, I think, for almost all of your experiments where their primary language is Tibetan and not English.
The picture chetu which gender chesa segurata the tanda chip chesa gi dushi chini pe chua gita degarsa ki tangbo the picture inking maris tangbo the picture kegi English.
But in order to help you with your data analysis and surveys, it would be very helpful to have the questions in both English and Tibetan.
The jela yaga suge the tantu dirichiba in a tantu diripchisha jute ishipchigura, ishipchiba in bana ko ishipchi tap do young chetura, Nishitsuga Chiwatita, Injita Pay in China, you buy the penthoyores.
Do not worry about the English being perfect. It's just there to help us.
Inchite Yanchi Tata Pete Yabu shoot in the Yoga Marete Galaya Sanchista Manaswa, Nete so the Jelaya and Atsuge those lobby cups that you call Laya, you tap doing Oxitians.
And if we could learn Tibetan in the next 2 days, we would, but that is not going to happen.
Sanyanani Baratrang as it's some of the pay jump to give by another Osres in Banana Corpores.
Okay, so this is the title. Oftentimes, from now on, I'm just going to do things in English. So here you may want to explain what the survey is.
And you Tandaki Chechipti Kari in say Chepchiti Kolaya and a Kobutrich or race.
Please complete this survey each morning.
Do I need to translate that into Tibetan?
Yeah, so here I've said, please complete this survey each morning when you wake up, so that people know, oh yes, this is a survey that I do each morning. It might remind them to do it tomorrow morning.
And that Yako Karado Chichigo Berwa, Shopa Nili Samatotu, and Nima Shopata produce Tigi Cheship, the Karochi Seshatwa, this Tambala Tigi Kalana, Ale Dekatu Drugu Yomerwa, and Eko didn't Drugu Yomer, and San Shopaya Yalam, but the Drugu say Tila Transut the Penguins.
Now, if we look, let's go to a survey that already has a lot of questions. You'll see that there's different sections. So the first section is about sleep.
Under the young Asukela Yako, Jeship Dripsha Jugitrochin by Nayan Kola, Dinsen Mandos to what Dinsen Mando Mando to what Dinsen de Casimbanat and the dig this in the new color to what.
And you can have different types of questions. So multiple choice questions are a question where the person can only pick one of the answers.
Adam come away to watch or Adam come away to attain bana, Telaya, Jin the Shichin land them taken a called Damka Kashichi opinion, a can't chick them like Goris.
So here during the past 2 weeks, how many days did you sleep at some point during the day? They can pick from one of 4 choices.
that tambo de bana ko dewe ge tantha ni rin la ya chora ni mo ge tis ane ko ni tong ku ba thang ka chole chong song se ni ka so chong song se de la ya ko dam ka mando shi chi do ga dam ka shi na ni kan chi dam ye ge ane ko ka te yores.
You can also have questions. Maybe I can make this a bit bigger. There, let's make that bigger. You can also have questions where people can just add a short answer.
That in Nashin ya draw shenda tina do ko len thong jamna diju ge draw tina ya try yores.
So for this question, how many minutes did you sleep each time? We don't want 500 choices to cover 500 different numbers.
That under the capsule ni kubi capsule kama capsule ku inside or the capsule and ko shaja ko tabdi tray ma to pe ko damka ko damka ngaja do tira do damya tira do trigamares.
Now, you might notice for this question of how many minutes, I put an example because we want somebody to type in a number.
That under the capsule karma capsule system balaya tela ya pitsun chisha yus tranka chitriores. Wa Data Koreans and Naku Pitsun Shagwa Jinsente and Dela Lanjabi capsule Lam Janeti Dena like Tangachi Jet Yoris.
And then here we see another section on behaviors.
That other Dela Yang also Dinsenchi Curricular, the Shukola Dinsenchi.
And this is really just many multiple choice questions in one.
Today, Kalana Damka Mavi draw Mampuchi and she draws chicken out the good Todozuchi Trisha.
So we have how many nights you eat before you go to sleep, how many nights you drink before you go to sleep, how many nights you meditate before you go to sleep.
That little taba in Banako, Mani Ngula, and Samas Manuela ya Samasaya in the Dots and Katsu Johnson, and Chutonella, so but Toyagi Chukazu Makatsu Samukatsu Johnson, and a gom jag in Sentinel Katsu Johnson said in the race.
And there are many other types of questions you can create on your form, but I'm going to show you how to create these 3.
That other day, Chirtang in Banat and the Google from the Gala, ya Chuag, the Tram, the Mampuchu. As we are as unitigoris, you may not hearing us so at the Joa Rigmando, something under the way you make yes.
I will also show you how to copy questions from another form so that if you want one of these, you can just use it.
That Tim say, get the Charangi at Joa Tansha Jugi, Karsureta. Okay, so
if we go to our form, you can click on this plus symbol. And it will add a new question. If you want to put your questions into sections, you click on these 2 bars.
Take it the drug on Dinson Mando la Zuni Tuba in Arwa, and they all like to go to Shini Church to a dig on them by now could Dinson Zuris.
So here we're going to do this is for a multiple choice question, but for this study, the first thing that we probably want to know is the name of the participant.
That under the caption, Banuko Damka Mavi drug irritated or him by Nangasu dinner to Chesh to buy a Chesh to a tongue putting Asukari Hakuni to grace Tambalaya and Kunzushi Minty Hakuni to grace.
Somebody is working on this form. Try not to work on this form right now.
Michigan Degan like a chichi de shas the Machiro chase.
Okay, so I'm actually going to pick short answer and just ask, what is your name?
That other day, like Tambote, land from Tontra Secretary, knitting on like General Mingering based teachers.
And I could put EX, for example, and put Robin.
Robins.
And the reason for our experiment, we need a person's name, is that we're going to collect data on each person for 3 days.
Tanda de kapsim bana ngatso de la yan jishi jinye gi mi ti min goya ge junsen ka re system la ya ngaso ge ti tanda ge changtu de de chi ba na changtu de chi sa ti mi chi ge gang la ya nima mando asam la ye de chi ge wa.
So we may want to take the information that Robin provided on day 1, 2, and 3 and know that all 3 of those are from Robin.
Ta ti kapsa kare hakugu yore se na Robin lagi ani nima tampo tanyo simba simchala ya lenchi jagarwa len jasha jute ani Robin lagi len java imbate ngachu ngi gugu yore ti ngia chetani minchu yores.
Now, if you were doing a descriptive study where you're sending out a survey to 50 people and asking them about sleep and emotion, you may not want to ask for their name.
Ta ke de chorang ge ani deje che ge ship che gorwa tin do che chorang ge chwa ti mi nga chus la ta de ta te ge korang ge chi ani ta ne chi tin do ko la ya len ja ni ge chwa ti ta yo pa ba na te kap che chu ge ya karsa min karim be se chwa ti matna ko res.
And there's 2 reasons. One is we're never going to go back to that same person if we're just doing a one-time descriptive study, so we don't need their name.
Ta chikare se stambala ya ngaso ge tanda ge chigen dejo ge chip bi kapsim ba na chi thamas chila drapatin res wa ta ko thamas chila ya twa ta len jab ni taran thwa chi ge res ani te kapsim ba na ngaso yangche mi til sa yangche son de ta twa ta ngaso ge ya karsu ta yangche jinde chi ge twa te tangma res.
And the second is that people maybe feel more comfortable providing honest answers if it is not tied to their name.
Tekete ya nyode ka system bala ya ko ge len kari chomba de susu ge min kari imbate ta chi jawate ta thume pai bai na ya chi len janye te ge la ro ta susu min ti maguna ani len janye te ge la len ti pete tambu ta cha ja la yam phengres.
So the next question that we need to ask our participants in this experiment is, remember, we have 3 who meditated and 3 who don't, and we need to make sure what they did last night.
Ta tanda de kapsa nga chu shenda chi kare ha go la na mi jushi chi ni ge cheka chi ke gomja yo ro chi ke gomja yo mar wa ti tambala ya ani khuzu tan dangong kari dru madati ya ha ku gu yo res.
So I'll ask, did you do a walking meditation yesterday evening? And there's only 2 answers to this question, yes or no. Now for our experiment, we will probably have told our participants who are doing the meditation how long to meditate, what type of meditation to do. So we shouldn't need to ask questions about that.
And the dig in it on the Kasimana chicken and Sunzi Chinitela Gomgi Risigurata Gumkarichi Jag Yometa Jun Reno Katsuchila Jag Yometi a Tampu Pranzushi and Moto dos Chitsareti Stambalaya and the Tata and Doyo Pigatrot in the Natale Machina degrees.
But maybe we're worried that some people, they could be doing a meditation and get disrupted by a dog and not finish. So we might want to ask them to describe their meditation.
Lana, Shendashika Lana, Yan San Samanga Sugi, Gom Javi Cups, Kido, and Shanda, Nitan Latin, Gomtila, Perception, Nitan Yon Sigro, and then Tambalaya, and she tried to courage to grace Tambalaya, Gomti Javi Cups, Perchet, which also is a to grace.
So I'll go ahead and add a question that's just allows them to describe something.
Tatadika Satraticalana, Gomtica Colayan, Chindesi Jarochi Satrati trees.
And here it says, if you did a meditation, describe your meditation yesterday evening. Because remember, some of our participants did not do a meditation.
또 데라야 게티 초롱게 아니 당고 검지 잡아이 마이나 검티 콜라야 모토지지로 지스 데시시로 지스 드와데 트리데스 타다데카스로 데카리스나 야 드야티 준생가다나 카시게 검자요 말레스.
So the main goal of the study is to compare sleep quality between our participants who meditated and did not meditate.
단단데 가지고 지 딱시 지에 되게 뭐이 소드가르에서나 검 자니 검 마자니게 바로라야 아니 거기 그쪽 바로게 애니라야 개발까지 두세 되고라 다시 지미어레스.
So I will add a section.
다다데라야 딘센치 카너지기스.
And call it sleep. So in this section, I'll add our first question on sleep quality, and I will call on David to give us one question we might want to ask about our participants' sleep last night.
David like David Lane and the new Picaton David draw Karitangis.
I think one of the really great questions we can ask, and first and foremost, is how many hours did you sleep last night?
That and the Nitan David draw Tampuchi Natsu Tampuke Chambusura Chi Tedical and Dangwan Sharon Katsu Girin like a new queen base draw attention.
So here there are several ways to do this, but one is we could go with a short answer.
That under the draw the Imbana draw the land Jatan Choro draw the Yuate Damkamando Damna Decores in Banada de Capsa Tampon Sakana Dugelana land Tonton Jagi Drogi number Tigana Drugins.
And one problem with this is that somebody might type 7, the number, or somebody might write out 7.
That under dinner trip and there I am Kangado Chicario races Tambala Chiki Chichinayan could then say Tangati Chisugres, right? And a chicken bane you get to see the Tangatsu Dinte that she didn't say Chigoro, you get it Chisugres.
And there are ways that we can fix that later in order to analyze our data. But there's also ways that we can make sure that they only give a number.
That under the Carsa, Chicarichores and a Jella Natsuki, Tantu, the GPV Capsera, Nanko, Nala Yigit by the Pazuja, the Yuris, in Banatanda de Capsucarisana, Co Tampukro, me Pazotic Lange of Caps in Chimichi Tangatriach or the zoo which I get Talentina Yores.
So to do that, if we click on these 3 dots,
that under the Zuegi Carsana, Damka Carosana, all I had so something to what they can name by now.
at least when I'm looking at this in English, I see response validation.
Response validation says you are the all.
And I can say I want a number rather than text.
All right, that they gala to what the Tamka to what Tanka says to one, and it's him goes Tanka to use.
And we could imagine that that number needs to be less than 24 because there's only 24 hours in a day.
And if the Tankatira Kangita Chungres Chungatan Swalana, you start sheet on Swa and Chungu is Kashila, and you much can station.
And this is very helpful because if somebody tried to say how many minutes they slept, they're probably going to get an error message and have to do it again and notice that it should be in hours.
General Queens and a Kashi Lanjabi Caps, Karma Kasuchila Queen, the dragon, Yanka, the dress igres, the Tribaina, and the Dela and Mr. Shitri, on that Chishu Chita, the tree, and a cook in Digabandus, Jungle Land, Juju top of them, Dusra, Instabalaya, name Mitila Yancher, Karmana, Trisha, Yancher, Soganatali Triagia, Dus Kukati, Stangris, Kugita, the Casa, Joa de la Lanjabi Caps in the Tongues.
So, the other type of question that I'm going to show you is one that can be helpful is when you have a grid. So to do this, we'll create a question. And it's called multiple choice grid, I think. So here I may ask, did you do the following last night?
Um, I'm going to ask, did you dream last night? I'm going to ask, did you get out of bed? Robin, what's one more thing we can ask?
Did you wake up in the middle of the night?
Okay.
What do you mean by did you get out of bed?
So get out of bed means that you wake up and actually get up and go somewhere, and come back. So I guess I should just say get out of bed. So here, somebody may say yes. Somebody may say no. But there's one other important thing is I do not know. Because remember, our memory can be bad, and the person may be like, I think maybe I dreamt, but I don't remember it clearly, and so they may not feel comfortable answering yes or no. Okay, so there are many more questions that we should probably ask. And I know this morning you worked on some questions, but I want to show you how you would send this survey to somebody for them to take it. So to send it, if you look up here in Google where there's these 3 dots, ignore that. If you click on send, the easiest way to do this is to click on this symbol that looks like a paperclip. you will see a link and you can ask to get a short version of that link.
다들라야 자타지던 그래서 자타도 돈 바이나 자타도 올라야 자타는 부수도 같아 진탕당으로 지사에게 연구 따자스는 되건 내산리그레스.
You can then copy this, and if you're doing the experiment on yourself, make sure that each of you has this link so that you click on this and fill out the form in the morning.
다다게 되면 자타스도 자타데 안에 당네 수수수가 들고요 반에 수수수가 연구 단다게 자타스도 돼 수수 라바요 바체 아니 쇼발 해바이나 자타데 간네데 연구 렌자나 디그레스.
So I'm just going to show you what we would see, what your participants see if they go to this link.
다게데 저런 그 주시 진행의 메디로 원 주시 진행의 메디 네 자타데가 침바인바이나 아니 거기 주시 진행되게 간다고 지 통과요 메디 단다도 스탱기스.
So here is our survey. I will type in my name. I did not do a walking meditation yesterday. And so I'm going to skip this question. I slept 6 hours last night. And I did not dream, to the best of my knowledge. I did not get out of bed. But I did wake up last night because something fell in the middle of the night and woke me up. And then I hit submit. What happens if we go back to where we created our form is you'll now see that there's been a response. And we will we'll learn more about how to work with the responses later. But one thing that is important is once you send out the survey or start collecting data for your experiment, you do not want to change the questions on the form. And that's because all of the data is going to go, you can sort of see like, oh, one person's answered no, but all the data goes into a spreadsheet like we looked at the other day. And this is where we will actually analyze our data. So if you change these questions during your study, it will make it much harder to analyze your data. I'm now going to show you how to do one more thing. Is if you look in each of your folders, you also have a survey that's called a short survey. And that includes all the questions that we sent out before the workshop.
Short survey says what the says what this is Samagana Yuris, that dig at Taba in Banana Dinana Carriores, the Natsuge 데 탁십디 마드고 ngala ya chechula cheshi tongtong chi tangsha ju to khachi oro o teta dinana yores.
So if I create another form,
De la ya from sawachi yes.
and give me a moment. I can click on this piece of paper with an arrow to bring in questions from another survey.
Tanda de chechip de chi sawachi zugro chechip sawa de zun stambala de la ya chi shogo gan la ya da to yo sado chitwa dige karasigla na ane chi yang chorong ge cheche ngola drip sha ju ti na ni chwa and not dang address.
So I will click on this. And I can actually pick the short survey. Oh, where is it? Oh my gosh, I have a lot of surveys right now.
Just a little bit up to the left, right?
Yeah, that's
That
a
it?
different one.
Oh, different one, okay. Never mind.
And then you can see, you should see on the side, and you can say what you want to bring in. So maybe you're going to send out a survey and you actually want all of these questions that we've used before on sleep. You can collect all of them. And if I hit import, I've automatically put that section into my new survey.
Oti kangi dinsen kangi nane dengi se ti chigu che ta te nane ta draw re damya yang dwa na draw ge dinsen damya dwa tanda ngasu ge de la ya ani ton drewe ge draw ge dinsen te ganen sha ba na ani ani ton drewe ge den draw ge dinsen ta na yo pe draw kanza tanda ge chorong ge jeju sawa chuzu sha ju tina chung kore nangden chi sha yores.
So you can use these questions as is, or maybe you might change this question to be, instead of the past 2 weeks, you might want to do the past month.
That ko draw ge na ne yang this enjoy tang ba na chi chi na chorong ge dewe ge dam chan ni se ge draw ti sha sigre chi chi ba na ya tin enjoy tang de tan dewe ge dawa chi ge rin la se ge te la enjoy tang de this.
This is particularly helpful for some of those questions with the big grids.
Ta dan de ba na de kang ge la pen to chenbu yore se na ani nga su ge chi do damka ma wi triwa imba kansila yang ku remove ki number yo ba mambu yo search to tinda do imba na ko nanden chi ba na yang ko di shu pengres.
So I could choose this one, and then it brings in this very complex question with all the different emotions and whether people have felt it a little, a lot, or not at all.
Ta tanda de ba na ko nga su ge chitang ge draw nyo nyo chao sin draw na la ya ko ji chashi mambu yo ruchi do de dos yongre te na la ya dam kai ba na chao ne chong ma chong shu mambu chong song se ge dam kai yo search to what they draw the concept so la sha yores.
And this is helpful because it will save you time and because they've been expertly translated by Dawa.
Ta tanda de na do chi che ba na che so kare pengres na ko mambu chi do sung tanzin chi tkres ro chi mambu chi ne thula mandu agi chi gre tim se tanda de ba na ko tampu ne ju sha ga ro is tamba la ko tab du res.
So what we're going to do is tomorrow, probably tomorrow morning, you will be creating your surveys.
Chi chi ba na sanye shopa da che so ge tinda ge che chip tinda ane tanda Google form na tele peche zogres.
And some of you will just need to create one descriptive survey. Some of you may just need to create one experimental survey, but many groups, it seems like, will need to create multiple surveys.
Da kashi ba na nga so ge chi ge dejo chi ge che chip tinda ro kan chi zo gwa tinda yong gre chi yang kashi ba na yong ko karsigure ta yang ringmando tinda chechip tinda ge ringmando tinda chi mambu zugwa kashi zugwa tinda yang gres.
And you will probably run into some problems, but you should sort of have all of the tools to make a survey. And then we'll be able to come back tomorrow evening and help you fix any problems before you start using them.
Timothy Delaya Chizubi Capsura, Takola, Lachamasana Mampush, which to what data Pecho Candastango and Canadagina Sagatinaya, Carsubreta. I can get in the trace cigarette and I do chin by now. Miss Honey Wondagi, Zenta, Topic Capsule, Kanakarachi Trace on Peter, Chian Todo Chikim by now. Yeah, those motorchi data and also can get chapati or what you call Dicme Patti Zuchijab, and Zuchijab Vatikalana. Nanda kita cecip cizu sepati mila macam ke ngala ya ko ciga nala ya nutrio pati sama zubu berwa ote asanya bunda dus angatu zuci jaga ya cestangins.
But one challenge of the workshop is that Robin and David and Ken and I would much prefer to be there with you to help you in person.
Tanda de nane ci kange ci kachi warsana gelang asu shaim ba na zode that de la yon do sani satula yon de ta neche chula khar khatila ya chi rokpa chi de dos.
So one thing that I'm going to do in the next couple of minutes is in each of your group folders, I'm just going to create a Google document.
That de la ya dinsin re na la ya gela dos Google ge document chizo yes.
And this will be called Questions and Answers for Teachers.
That they mean de la ya ne gigin sola draw tria ta ni land gigin sola via get draw ta talents at the chickens ko mean de la.
So if you run into a problem that you can't create a survey or you're starting to try to make a graph, you can put them in here, and that gives us a way to sort of look at the problems people are facing when we're not there and then try to help you when we are together.
Graph in the zoo, Mana, Kangi Karikarichi Treba, Tizu by na, Dina la Triba in by na, giving us in Bana Sanisa Totoyo Martina and Tandagi, Chichu, Digan la Triba and Data Latin the Chichu, Kangi Karikarichi Tesha, Tito, and Gisela Karikarichi would do things with the genetic risk.
So let's say you have a problem of that one of your study participants forgot to do the meditation last night and you're not sure what to do, you could put that in here. And then when we see that, we may either at the beginning of class try to answer some of these questions, or if we see them, we might try to give you answers in the document. We will also, over the rest of the workshop, have several times where you will be working on your projects. And when we're there, there'll be a laptop that you can go to ask us questions. With that, we have hit break time. So enjoy your break. Make sure you walk around a little bit, and we will see you in 30 minutes.
That percentage of the lessons, and yeah, much page, and it is the legend and come at some Jayons.